So what has been my hottest take of the week for which I have been mocked?
That the Saints should sign Jameis Winston.
Bingo. Gave it a lot of thought. And I actually, you know what? I've had enough people this week say, you know what, Matt? Yeah, man, that made a lot of sense. I've had a lot of people say that. Now, a lot of people just laugh, and they don't even bother listening to the take, and they just make crab leg jokes, which I don't blame you, because I like to make those crab leg jokes, too, about Jameis. But today, Pro Football Talk. Mike Florio, Chris Sims, why don't you give a listen to this?
Should sign Jameis Winston.
God dog it. Hold on. Are you ready? Here you go.
Is he willing to be a backup? Some teams want a guy who says, I'm just here to support the starter. I'll hold the clipboard. I'll push the starter in practice. I'll help him get prepared. Is that what he wants, or does he want to go somewhere where he would be competing? And does that fit with what a team is looking for in a backup quarterback? Look, I think the Saints make the most sense for him.
I hear that.
Look at what it did.
I hear you.
For Teddy. Yeah, for what it did for Teddy Bridgewater.
Right.
And you have an opportunity to play if Drew Brees gets injured again, and he's 41. Maybe he gets injured again. You work with Sean Payton. You iron out some of these rough spots, and you've got great weapons like Michael Thomas. I think that's where I would want to go. I'm not as big on Pittsburgh as a possibility. I don't think Ben Roethlisberger would embrace Jameis Winston, frankly, the way that Drew Brees would. Sure. I think the Saints make the most sense.
Boom! All right, so it's just one guy that agrees with me. But it's a guy on a major national scale who agrees with me. Unsolicited, by the way. It does make a lot of sense to have Jameis Winston as a backup for a year at the right price. By the way, looked up the Von Bell contract during the break. 3 years, $18 million. Malcolm Jenkins got 4 for $32. Malcolm Jenkins got a bigger deal with the Saints than Von Bell got with the Bengals. So one of two things happened there. Either the Saints just were done with Von Bell and thought Jenkins was a better player and wanted to give him a bigger deal, or Bell was asking for an enormous price. They said, we're good. They went and signed Jenkins. Bell went tested free agency, didn't have a big market, and ultimately settled in Cincinnati. Mentioned that Mickey Loomis was on the Peter King podcast. Here was Mickey Loomis talking about re-signing Malcolm Jenkins, bringing back to the Saints where he started his career.
You know, first of all, with Malcolm, yeah, I'd be the first one to say that, man, we should never let him out of the building. And look, that's my responsibility more than anyone's. He was the epitome of what you want as a leader and a player, you know, for us for first, 5 years of his career, and obviously did that more in Philadelphia over the last however number of years it's been. So to get him back into our building is, really a blessing as much as anything else. I'm looking forward to having him in our building again. And look, we expect great play. We know we're going to get great play from him, but we also know that he's a positive addition in terms of leadership in the locker room. But yet, listen, he was still under contract to the Eagles all the way up to, just really the day before that we were able to get an agreement with him. So that wasn't something that was expected going into free agency.
I heard a doorbell ring and an aluminum can hit. If you scroll it back, by the way, that went over the air. But if you scrub it back, you can hear a doorbell ring and an aluminum can hit the desk. The days of media in the coronavirus age. What?
I got nothing. I mean, did you want to play it again or I don't?
Don't worry about it. We're good. The Saints yesterday reworked Janoris Jenkins' contract. Today, we found out that they've actually extended him. So this is significant for a couple of reasons. Yesterday, if you were with us, we talked about the Janoris Jenkins contract, and what the Saints did essentially was they took his $11.2 million salary cap hit. They converted that contract number, $9 million of it, into a signing bonus. So Janoris Jenkins gets paid up front. It's almost like you win the Powerball. Do you want the lump sum, or do you want the annual payment for the rest of your life? And so Jenkins takes the lump sum, and the Saints add voidable years to the end of the deal so they can spread that money over years that don't exist, basically. It's a loophole in the contract, but it's a brilliant way to manipulate the system if you have an owner that's willing to pay out the lump sum up front, which Tom Benson always was, and clearly Gail Benson is willing to do as well to help the team be able to sign whoever they need to sign. Well, we thought yesterday, given the contract restructuring, that was going to be it, that essentially Janoris Jenkins would be a free agent next season. Well, that's not going to happen now. Janoris Jenkins has signed an extension with the New Orleans Saints. Ian Rappaport reported it first. So it's a 2-year, $16.75 million extension now that Jenkins has got, which means he's now under contract for 2 more years beyond 2020. What this also allows the Saints to do is lower the cap hit even further, freeing up more space. So Jenkins' base salary this year is going to be $1.05 million, but remember, he got $9 million to sign. He got the full $9 million to sign up front yesterday. So the cap hit this year for Janoris Jenkins is $5 million. Next year, it's $14.2 million. And then in 2022, it's $8.7 million. So it lowers. And I'm sure there's ways to manipulate some cap relief in there as well. But even if not, it's still an acceptable number, especially if Drew Brees isn't going to be on the roster next year, although you are going to have some dead money with Drew Brees if he's not on the roster. But I would say this about the Jenkins deal. My only problem with this is that if you feel like it's a big risk to invest 3 years into a 31-year-old cornerback, that would be the only thing. If you feel like giving a 31-year-old a 3-year deal, that's a risk. You did something similar now with Malcolm Jenkins, giving him a 4-year contract at $32 million. You've invested now multiple years into 2 defensive backs into their 30s. Aside from that, I love this for a lot of reasons. Number one, the Saints have shown they're committing to Malcolm Jenkins to Janoris Jenkins for 3 years. It's not you have him for next year and then he hits free agency and you negotiate again. You've got a guy you like, a guy that you think is a really good cornerback, and now you've got him under contract for 3 more years. You get a veteran at a reasonable price opposite Marshawn Lattimore. So you've got your young, all-pro caliber cornerback locking down one side, and now you've got Janoris Jenkins, who you still feel is playing at an elite level. Opposite him, you get a veteran presence in that locker room now opposite Lattimore. I think this also offsets the huge contract that you're likely to give Marshawn Lattimore next year, of course, because Lattimore, you could pick up the 5th-year option, but realistically, do you want him to play through his 5th season and then let him hit the market as an unrestricted free agent? I don't think so. So the same reason that you need to that you extended Mike Thomas last year, the same reason that you're going to extend Alvin Kamara this offseason is the same reason you're going to extend Marshawn Lattimore next offseason. Because you don't want him to hit free agency and then you're in a bidding war with the rest of the league. But this also allows you to draft a cornerback in this year's class as a cheap option. If, again, just think of it in terms of Lattimore 3 seasons ago, where you had albeit a first-round pick, but still a lockdown corner on a rookie contract. You had him on the cheap. They'll likely do the same thing this year to provide themselves a buffer if they need it for either Lattimore's contract or if Jenkins doesn't play up to the expectation. The one question is, do you believe he can play for the next 3 years? And I'll look at this past year for Janoris Jenkins, where he had 5 interceptions, which was 3rd in the NFL. As a 30-year-old cornerback, he had 5 interceptions, tied for 3rd in the league, despite his falling out with the Giants there at the end. In his Pro Bowl season in 2016, his best year in the NFL, he had 18 pass breakups. This past year with the Giants and the Saints, he had 16. So you're still talking about a cornerback playing at a very high level, and you've got him at under contract now at a reasonable price for the next 3 years. The Saints are so all in on now, and I love it. And to some degree, what you weigh in that conversation is, are you willing to potentially mortgage your future to win now? And if you're okay with that, then you love what they're doing. You invested a lot of money into Andrus Peat. You gave a big deal to a 31-year-old cornerback. You gave a big deal to a 32-year-old safety. But you got guys that are going to make you really good in 2020. and give you the best opportunity to win a Super Bowl championship now. And maybe that costs you down the line. We'll see. Maybe it doesn't. But if it brings another Lombardi trophy to New Orleans, cool with it. How could you not be?